Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later on in the program, we're going to talk about the recall effort that I think was successful up north. But first, I don't think the city has seen a mayoral race as contentious as this in a long time. Matter of fact, I might go all the way back to Pena beating Mayor McNichols, because I'm old and I've been around for a while.
I wasn't alive then.
Thank you. Jon Murray wasn't alive then.
Webb Early was pretty contentious too, as I recall.
Jon Ensslin from Colorado Politics. Thank you for being here, both of you.
Thank you.
All right, well, to hell with you. I don't like young people. So how big is this mayoral race? I mean, it has gotten contentious.
Intense.
Well, how so?
It is intense. And you know what? I came back just to cover Denver in this situation for Colorado Politics. And it's everything I hoped for and more, John. It's, I mean, big issues writ large. Articulate candidates duking it out, and now we're down to the final two, Jamie Giellis and Michael Hancock. And I'm telling you, with each of the debates, it seems like the edge has gotten a little more sharper until this most final debate.
Well, let's bring it over here. All right, so Junior, we used to have mayors here. The mayor's race is very different. I think people don't realize that there's a runoff system for the mayor, and because so often they win in the first round, and right. This hasn't been. How rare does this seem to you?
It's more rare when you got an incumbent running for re-election, but not unheard of. Mayor Pena, Mayor Webb, they both faced runoffs once during their tenures. Webb did not have a runoff for his third term, but he had a really contentious one for the second term. The last time we had a runoff wasn't that long ago. It was 8 years ago when Mayor Hancock won. He went to a runoff with Chris Romer because it was a really wide field. They split up the vote, and so we had a lot of newcomers since then, right? So there's a lot of new people participating who aren't familiar with this brand of a runoff system where it's first round and the second round.
Before we get into Jamie Giellis, let me ask the Hancock question. Why is he running for his political life right now? I would think that this would be pretty smooth sailing. You said Webb's third term was there. Let's start over here.
This city is so different than the one I left 10 years ago, and a lot of people are anxious and concerned about the pace of growth and development. They see things being pushed out of the way that were cherished, and Jamie Giellis has tapped into that, as well as the other candidates in the general election. And I think that's the main reason why Michael
So
Hancock
are you saying this is like an anti-growth issue, that this is what that's about?
I think there's some of that, yeah.
And I would add two things to that. John's spot on that. There's a lot of kind of angst over how fast Denver's changed. There's been kind of a whiplash for long-timers in the last 8 years since Hancock was elected. But at the same time, you're looking at 8 years with a single mayor, so I think that's an additional thing. People sort of get tired of political leadership, and so you got to make a bigger case for a third term. And I remember talking to the mayor about that a year and a half ago, and he recognized that was going to be a challenge this time. And then there's kind of the big elephant in the room, which was the scandal a little over a year ago. The texts to the security detail officer, that kind of threw him off his game quite a bit, and he's been coming back from that. And it's something that I found in my reporting, it sticks with the voters. It's still on their minds. It hadn't been a big issue, but it has come back in some of the recent debates. And that's something that's still bedeviling him.
Why did Jamie Giellis win in this runoff? Why did she come in second compared to Lisa Calderon or Penn Tate?
I don't have a great answer on that. I mean, the stupid answer is that she got more votes than they did.
Yeah, that's what I expect from you, Junior. Let me go over to a seasoned professional here.
What I will say is that I think she offered, the kind of the discontent that's greeted the runoff is that, we got the two candidates who are kind of the most alike. She is a lot more mainstream than Lisa and Penn were in terms of being a little bit more pro-business. And as much as she talks about growth and development, she wouldn't rock the boat necessarily in some other areas.
But I keep getting mixed signals here, because I keep hearing, she's business friendly, but I also hear she's an urban planner, which is the opposite of business friendly. That she's going to stop all these developments, which is opposite of business friendly. Mm-hmm. Stopping development means that housing costs still go up, and there's not a single urban planner that doesn't cause home prices to go up because they keep messing with things.
Well, in Denver, that's kind of what passes for a populist strain these days.
Is being business by being anti-business?
Well, it's just being skeptical of development patterns and developers and wanting to put some more stops in the city process.
She's also tapped into what I call the ugly building phenomena. You know, these canyons of new buildings that just went up, built to the property line, no design element, no art, no architecture.
Yeah,
And
they're beautiful, man.
yeah, but there a lot of people don't like them, and it's like it's not their old Denver. And
It's not my old Denver. I
Yeah.
grew up in Colorado. I'm
Right.
pissed off about everything.
exactly, and traffic too.
And traffic too, but I'm not going to tell some guy how to build his building. So basically, I get a sense that what she's looking for is to make Denver more like Boulder, where the city forces certain looks, forces certain features when you're building, forces artwork. I mean, we have what, 1% for art every time the government builds something. It's not like
We have
we're
that.
lacking
We have that
art.
in Denver too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's so. I'm still trying to get my handle on the difference between these two. So, is it really coming down to I hate these canyons? I wish there were more art.
No, there was lots more, John. I mean,
Like what?
she started out this campaign being against the urban camping ban. You know, that
Right.
law that says you cannot sleep overnight on the streets, public spaces of Denver. Now, she's evolved since then. You know, she said in the Republican Party debate, I can't repeal it. It's the council that does it. And then later she said, I can't repeal it and I won't repeal it. We'll fix it instead. So that's been a distinct difference between her.
Sounds to me
and
like she's
Hancock.
tapping into the anger that a lot of us have downtown of the homeless and just how crazy
Well,
it's getting.
she is, but she's also really on the defensive because she kind of staked out that position of I'm going to repeal that ban because I think it's inhumane. And then it turns out that more than 80% of voters turned down Initiative 300 in the first round. That in the general election, that would have gone further than that.
Right.
But it also the keystone was getting rid of the camping ban, and 81 or 82% of voters said, heck no, don't do that. So you've noticed a softer tone from her on that, especially since then. She's not saying, hey, I've totally changed my tack, but she is saying we need to have something concrete and better in place before we get rid of that law or change it or do whatever we're going to do.
And meanwhile, Hancock's hammered her from the very night, from election night itself. He came over and told us, we're going to make an issue of this. She's against the urban camping ban. It's one of our most useful tools in dealing with homelessness.
It's amazing how in a campaign the most stupid thing becomes the thing that changes the direction of a campaign or a path I think of Vice President misspelling potato. Who cares? And he read it off the card, but that was enough. The race issue here I find fascinating. So while she doesn't know what the NAACP stands for, the interviewer said, well, that doesn't matter as long as you know what the group does, and she kind of answered that pretty well. But what's interesting is that other two challengers of color, both Lisa and Penfield Tate, endorse her, but because she's a white blonde woman, is that still getting traction, or did the NAACP gaffe,
I think
cause this thing that, oh my God, she doesn't understand?
It caused a problem for her for a couple of reasons. One, there was a juxtaposition where the day just before she was on that live stream, Brother Jeff's show, with the NAACP remark or the hold up on that, she was endorsed by Penn and by Lisa Calderon at that event. And so there was kind of that juxtaposition that made her look a little bit clueless right after that happened. She tried to defend herself, but you also have the dynamic where voters are especially paying attention a lot more now in the runoff. For some, the first round was kind of like, okay, do I like Hancock? It's a referendum on him. If not, I just pick a candidate and vote for them.
Right.
Now they have to decide, do they like Jamie Giellis as an alternative? And for some is a different calculus. So they also don't know a lot about Jamie Giellis. They're looking to see who is this person. And that kind of a gaffe, while surface level in some respects, when there's kind of a vacuum of information about the candidate, when people are kind of hyper-analyzing any new bit they hear, I've heard from a lot of voters that and how she responded to that and the subsequent things that happened really kind of told them something about who she is, or they judged either way, like, do we like how she handled that or not?
And John, the subsequent things that happened, including scrubbing her social media account, taking out this Twitter tweet about why does every town have a Chinatown?
Which I didn't understand why that was a big deal. Was it an honest question? Why does
Part of it was so vague that it was hard to tell what the heck she meant.
Yeah.
Right.
And it took her 6-7 days to explain what she meant.
Right, but none of these things are policy. You said, use the term very politely, evolving on the camping ban. Those are issues of policies. You mentioned the development, housing. Those are this is style.
It's style, but it's also it bleeds into personality too. And when the closer an office is to the people, to where they might see them on a daily, or not a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, or see them out and about, they vote a lot on personality too. Do they trust the person? What do they understand about the person? And in a lot of ways, that's benefited Hancock over the years. He seems like somebody you could just sit and chat with. He's a very open guy. And so Jamie Giellis, they're trying to evaluate, is that the same for her too? So people judge elections in a million different ways. It's different for every voter, and it's not always based on policy. Certainly, in a perfect world, I guess it would be, but they also want to know who's going to be implementing that policy, and do they trust them?
So the fisticuffs here
are you convinced by that?
Yeah, actually I am. I mean, when people vote for people they like,
right?
That's
a better way of saying
it. And so who do you like? And it comes down to those people in the middle who are not driven by policy. But the fisticuffs have been just terrific. The back and forth NAACP thing, and now the woman who was the target of sexual harassment comes out and does a strong endorsement, even though she came out. So, what did Branch Wise say?
She said,
and remind us of the scandal just a little bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned it before, but
sexually suggestive text messages sent by the mayor to a detective who was part of his security detail.
And this was in his first year in office in 2012.
Yeah. And it's been simmering as an issue until the other night. John and I were talking about it out in the hallway. I've never seen a debate like this, John, where the key moment comes in the final seconds of the final minute of the last debate, where your colleague, Andrew Kenney, asked a good question that threw the mayor off kilter, and he gave a reply that caused an uproar, and that he apologized for immediately the next morning, because it made it sound as if he was trying to say, well, this was just a back and forth, these text messages.
Victim blaming, that's how some saw it.
Yeah.
Oh.
That didn't sit well with anybody the next morning. Although I have to confess, it flew right by me that night, because there was so much going on in the chaos of that moment.
There were also some choice words that were used in texts that also just amplify all these problems, right? Mm-hmm. So explain that one.
Which one do you mean?
I'm trying. Was there an N-word issue?
Oh, the new one.
Here?
Yeah. So the Leslie Branch Wise, she provided to the media in the last week a new text that was a use of the N-word by the mayor to her. It appeared not where he typed it out, but where he sent her a meme essentially, saying it's Friday and then using the N-word, and with a picture and of like an African child. And she had held on to this and said, hey, this offended me, this was inappropriate. This kind of feeds into a little bit more complex issues where you had a text exchange between two African Americans. There's divided opinions over whether that's appropriate or not, depending on who you talk to.
All right, last question, we're over time, but who wins? Give me a handicap here.
I don't
know.
I'm going to tell you the honest answer.
Have you seen any polls?
There's internal polls, but I don't trust them.
Okay, what
you
about
just
over
kind of hear some murmurs of that.
I always hear about those. Well, we've got a poll that says this, but it's not published.
Everything I hear is that it's much more close than the mayor's people would want it. They had some confidence, but he's had a bad week, so it's hard to tell.
Didn't the mayor say that there wasn't going to be a runoff?
I don't recall him saying that, no. His people, they knew there was going to be a runoff in the last week, at least, before the general election.
All right, to learn more, the Denver Post, Colorado Politics, thank you both. John, Doctor. Stay tuned.